Our next genius is an installation artist whose pieces draw new meaning out of common objects and pop culture. This is a story of a CUNY graduate who became a MacArthur Fellow and his unique exploration of community and belonging through art.
Pepón Osorio was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and moved to New York City in 1975 when he was still young, settling in the South Bronx.
I moved to New York, specifically what I call is the Republic of the South Bronx. I'm an immigrant, definitely. I mean, I went through the process of learning the language, I went through the process of learning the culture.
Before his art practice took shape, Osorio earned a sociology degree from Lehman College and then worked as a social worker in the child abuse prevention program in the South Bronx. He earned a master's in sociology from Columbia University. In his early years, his art focused on ornate, sculptured objects, deeply informed by Puerto Rican heritage, talking about history, stereotypes, objects, and much of his artwork drew direct inspiration from conversations he had in the community.
So what I was doing was collecting stories, collecting experiences, collecting the memory of what it was to be with all those families, and then translating them into an installation. And I also saw myself not bearing the responsibility of a caseworker, but that of an artist, trying to figure out a way to allow myself and the people that I work with to step back and look at the situation. I'm always interested in working with people that have no clue what traditional or contemporary, or for that matter, institutional art is all about.
In 2023, the new museum mounted a survey of the work of Pepón Osorio. The work ranged from small, sculptural pieces to the large installations for which he is perhaps most known.
It's actually quite an honor to be able to show all of these works together for the first time, because he has worked in these very site-specific situations. You enter many different universes, almost like a maze or an experience in each one of them, one after the other, is something that's very new.
I think Pepón is an artist driven by a sense of responsibility, always trying to reach a certain degree of justice in relation to the communities that he's working with. Issues related to race, gender, social class in the United States, and all these issues, they are embedded very deeply in the formation of these works.
Margot Norton and Bernardo Musquiera curated the show in collaboration with Osorio. They recognize the dual nature of his work, that it belongs both in the community and in the institutional space of a museum.
The works definitely do change when they're seen inside of the community versus when they're inside of the museum, because in so many of these installations, there's times where I feel personally like I'm transported. They're almost like portals, and I become inside of a totally different space that I almost forget where I am. His work has almost always been maximalist in its approach. He really does embrace that wholeheartedly, this idea of a maximalist aesthetic, right? So he's taking a kind of aesthetics that's not typically valued in institutional spaces, but he's going even deeper within it to make a specific statement about what is valued or not valued.
Osorio's first major installation was called Scene of the Crime. The work spoke to issues of Hispanic identity and Hollywood stereotypes, with a focus on the film Fort Apache the Bronx, a movie protested by Latinos at the time for perpetuating a violent stereotype.
What I really was going for was basically the reality of how we lived and how we were portrayed by the Hollywood film industry at that time. Scene of a crime, which is basically the killing of a stereotype.
This piece was installed at the Whitney, but for his next major work, No Crying in the Barbershop from 1994, Osorio wanted his art to have a direct impact on the community, and so the piece was installed in the community.
The opening of the No Crying Allowed in the Barbershop, I brought together two groups of people that not normally talk to each other, which was the local people and the art people, and they both came together, converge in an opening. So little by little, I started to somehow create the reverse patterns that you see when you look at art in museums. It's extremely important to me to bring the outsider inside. Even if I think that I'm an insider, I'm an outsider.
No Crying in the Barbershop was first installed in a Puerto Rican neighborhood in Connecticut called Frog Hollow, and eventually led to his MacArthur Genius Grant, given a few years later in 1999.
I think the idea of collaboration is really central in Pepón's work. Most part of his works and all his most important works were developed in collaboration with different communities. Sometimes with one person, sometimes with a small group of people, sometimes with an entire community, as in the case of Reform, a work that he developed from 2014 to 2017, in which he collaborated literally with an entire community of students, former students, parents, teachers, farmers, workers, who were all mourning the closing of this school in Philadelphia.
I only work with communities that are very, very close. I've learned to become a passive voice. I come into the neighborhood, I create my presence, people see me, people become curious about who I am. I have conversations that are completely non-art related. They all have a way of making and approaching things that is different from each other. And I learned to listen to that, what I call the social architecture of communities. I learned to listen to that.
And still, Osorio works. His 2023 piece, Convalescences, shows an artist still at the height of his genius-level powers.